They were larger than life inside that ring. Millions screamed their names. Kids wore their merchandise to school. Grown men cried watching them perform. But behind those bright arena lights, behind the pyro and the championship belts and the roaring crowds, some of these men were quietly falling apart. And before the world even got a chance to say goodbye, they were gone. And today, we're talking about 5 WWE wrestlers the world lost way too soon. Starting with number 5, Umaga. Real name, Eddie Fatu, a Samoan powerhouse who terrorized the entire WWE roster in the mid-2000s. A man so physically dominant that his feud with John Cena gave us some of the most brutal television WWE ever aired. And yet, on December 4th, 2009, Eddie Fatu died at just 36 years old from a heart attack brought on by years of painkiller abuse and substance dependency, released by WWE earlier that year for violating their wellness policy. Gone before he ever got the chance to become the main event star he was always destined to be. And then there's number 4, Miss Elizabeth, the original First Lady of Wrestling, elegant and graceful and beloved by every single person who ever watched her stand ringside beside Randy Savage. A woman who never wrestled a match yet somehow commanded every room she walked into. And she died on May 1st, 2003 at just 42 years old from an accidental overdose of painkillers and alcohol. Her final hours surrounded by troubling circumstances that the industry barely stopped to mourn the way it deserved. And moving to number 3, Brian Pillman, the loose cannon. A man so ahead of his time that even WWE management couldn't tell where the character ended and the real person began. A former NFL player and tag team legend who survived a near-fatal car accident in 1996 that shattered his ankle. Came back to wrestling before he was ever fully healed because he loved this business that much. And died alone in a hotel room on the morning of a pay-per-view at just 35 years old. An undetected congenital heart defect combined with years of painkiller use finally taking everything from a man who had already given everything he had. And then we reach number 2, Owen Hart. And everything gets heavier here because Owen didn't die from substances or years of physical damage. Owen Hart died live on pay-per-view on May 23rd, 1999, lowered from the rafters of Kemper Arena as part of his Blue Blazer entrance when a chest harness failed to release and he fell 78 feet into the ring below, pronounced dead at the hospital at just 34 years old. One of the most technically gifted, genuinely funny, deeply humble human beings the wrestling world ever produced. And the show continued that night. The broadcast kept going, a decision that still haunts this industry. And his wife Martha Hart has spent decades fighting for accountability because Owen deserved so much more than the way his story ended. And finally, number 1, the story I debated including, the one that isn't just a tragedy, but a horror story. Chris Benoit, arguably the most technically perfect wrestler who ever lived. A 4-time world champion whose in-ring work other wrestlers studied like a textbook, who over the course of a single weekend in June 2007 murdered his wife Nancy, his 7-year-old son Daniel, and then took his own life. And the wrestling world shattered completely. And when the autopsy results came back, doctors found that Benoit's brain had been so severely damaged by repeated concussions and untreated CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, that it resembled the brain of an 85-year-old Alzheimer's patient. Among the worst damage Dr. Bennett Omalu, the doctor who exposed CTE in NFL players, had ever seen. And none of that excuses what he did. Nothing ever will. But the Benoit case changed the conversation around head trauma in professional wrestling forever, forced WWE to implement concussion protocols, made the entire sports world take CTE seriously, and what we're left with is a family that is gone, a legacy that is destroyed, an industry that was forced to look itself in the mirror, and 5 names: Umaga, Miss Elizabeth, Brian Pillman, Owen Hart, Chris Benoit. 5 human beings who gave everything they had to a business that, for a long time, asked too much and gave back far too little. And if any of these stories hit you today, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe, because these names deserve to be remembered. And I'll see you next week.